So you've decided you're going to Mexico to do saltwater fly fishing on the flats. There's probably some stuff in this video that's worth knowing before you go. Let's get fired into it. So in this video we're going to cover off what to expect in organising your trip and going on your trip, what gear you need and what the fishing is like, and also cover off some common misconceptions. So what to expect from your trip. If you're coming from the UK, it's a long flight, it's 10 hours, and don't underestimate that. I know a lot of people have travelled the globe, but 10 hours is still 10 hours on a plane. My advice at this point as far as flights goes, do not connect through Dallas-Fort Worth. If you can pay a little bit more to travel direct into Cancun, I would absolutely do so. There's nothing wrong with Dallas-Fort Worth. People from Texas, people from the US are absolutely sound people, but the processes for customs on a transfer, especially on a short transfer, are an additional stress that you don't need. Before getting to Cancun, definitely pre-book your taxi. The last thing you want to do is get off a plane at night in Mexico and be hunting for a taxi to your hotel. Some of us have made this mistake previously, and it'll cost you an arm and a leg, and it's not much fun. You end up doing a bit of standing around that you don't really want to do. So get that pre-booked, get it all organised, and it will be a little bit less hassle. So if you're going to Ascension Bay, where I went in Mexico, where you'll be based out of Punta Allen, the journey from Cancun is not necessarily short. It's about 3 hours, 2 of which are by road, and you've got about 40 minutes to an hour by speedboat through the bay, which is fairly breathtaking when you get there. The other thing to remember as part of that is things don't always run in time in Mexico. A little bit more laid back than we are in the UK. It's totally fine, but just get that into your psyche before you go, that things are a little bit more chilled, and those guys are a little bit more chilled. So try and adopt a little bit more of the chill life in your mindset. You'll get there, you'll get fishing, so don't worry about it. From a language perspective, not everyone speaks English, and there is a real variety in capability in speaking English. But ironic coming from a Scottish person, but that's by the by. So be patient. Use apps like Duolingo to do a little bit of practice before you go. The guys over there certainly appreciate you making an effort with a little bit of Spanish, and certainly don't be afraid to use different translation apps, Google Translate, etc. when you're there if the message just isn't landing. From a food perspective, the food's absolutely superb, especially at Punta Allen, where you will be residing if you go to Ascension Bay. Lots of different variety, a lot of different seafood. Word of caution: if you're a particularly picky eater, you need to make that very clear to your hosts en route. You may not always have the option of Bayesian bland, so just be aware of that, but they will definitely have something that can cater for you. And as you can expect, the views are something else in that part of the world. It is just stunning. So as you can see up here, it's you won't be disappointed as far as what there is to see. So moving on to the gear and fishing side of things, obviously you need a fishing rod, potentially more than one. I took with me the Vision Mary, which is a sort of middle of the road 9'9" saltwater rod. I think it was about £550, which it's a good solid rod. You could spend more, you could definitely spend less. What I also did though was I borrowed a 10 weight rod when I was there. The first rod I was given was something that I believe was manufactured in biblical times, If you're not happy with what you're given that you're probably renting that equipment, be sure to call out that you want something different. That's what I did, and the next day I had something that was fresh out the wrapper and far more proficient in the job we were trying to tackle. As far as reels go, I took the Airflow V3. There's about 3 tons of backing on this thing, and I also paired it up with the Rio Outbound Short tropical line. Again, these lines are designed for tropical climates, hotter climates, and function much better in that sort of world. Certainly the short head on that line was absolutely superb. As a novice saltwater fly fishing angler, you want something that can deliver the fly quickly and with power. So limited casts, limited false casts as well. And if you're one of these anglers, and we all know there's a few kicking around that enjoy a good false cast, 4, 5, 6.
5 minutes later.
7 to get an extra 2 feet. That's a sort of different game and a different line, and you need to be able to deliver that fly with one false cast, a double haul, and land that fly 40 feet away and be ready to go when instructed to do so. As far as leaders, tippet go, these are the sorts of things that you're looking to get your hands on. So these are Rio saltwater tapered leaders. You get them in sort of £12 for bonefish, 16 for your permit, and you've got these toothy critter £30 for tarpon, barracuda alike, and they've got a wire trace on the front of them. Certainly the £16 stuff for permit will also work absolutely fine for the bonefish, not a problem at all. As far as clothing goes, you want to be dressed like this, and you will spend a lot of time dressed like this because it's fairly hot in that part of the world, and the UV rays coming off the water are something else. So be prepared to be in a similar situation to this for a fair amount of time, like this guy here. So trucker cap, would certainly go with the trucker cap because it's got the vents in the back. Keep your head circulating with air. Good pair of sunglasses, polarised sunglasses. Gator snood type material for neck and up and over. And then this sort of top, hooded if possible would be the suggestion. You can get these in a whole range. You can get the Sims Solar Flex tops, which are 70 odd quid, or like these ones that I took with me at the time, which were sort of 20 quid each off Amazon, and absolutely did a job and has that SPF 50 rating on it, so you're not going to get sunburnt. So moving on to the fishing a little bit. The fishing's absolutely superb, but do not show up in Mexico thinking you're going to be banging £100 tarpon every day, loads and loads of big fish. This is saltwater flats fly fishing. You are hunting fish in a very open and tropically barren setting. You'll spend a lot of time looking for fish. You'll actually spend quite a lot of time standing, observing, looking, and it is a patience game, but a very rewarding patience game. The guides that you'll be with are absolutely superb. I've got no idea how they spot some of these very translucent fish, the bonefish and the permit, from great distance through rippled water, but they will do their absolute best to put you on fish. Definitely listen to your guides, especially if you're very new to this. They will recommend flies, they will recommend technique, and tell you where to put the fly and put you on those fish. It is incredibly rewarding the first time you hook into a saltwater fish on the fly. First fish that I hooked into was a 4-pound bonefish that put a 9'9" weight rod onto the backing. Just scary power for what it is. So you won't be disappointed regardless of what you come up against. The things to also be aware of though when going to fish in that environment, it's not all going to be open water, big wide casting. You're going to be in some tight positions. The tarpon, the baby tarpon as they call them, that are up to 40 odd pounds. Don't know how they got to baby tarpon with that. These fish like to sit tight into the mangrove and under the mangrove. Protection and food and ambush prey. So you're going to have to be pretty accurate with some of your casting. You've got potentially a sort of 1.5 to 2 feet space quite often that you need to be targeting with your fly, and you can be 35 to 40 feet away from that target. And if you get it wrong, you're going to splash short in the water, and if you go high, you're going to be catching the tropical wood fish, also known as a mangrove. So if you can get some practice in before you go, and if you've not done it, would absolutely recommend that. And yeah, just be aware that there are going to be very different environments when fishing in that space. My first experience for a fish was actually targeting tarpon in amongst very narrow mangroves that weren't any wider than your average footpath, and mangrove all around. So you have to get creative with the casting. It's not all going to be, as I said, big wide casts that you see on a lot of YouTube videos. It's going to be some intricate work in there too. I'm sure your guides will cover this off when it comes to targeting saltwater fish on the fly. Do not strike into the fish. Again, if you're coming from a strong trout background, still water, river, where you tend to lift the rod when the fish takes, do not do that. You're looking at a strip set pull with the line to set the hook and keeping the rod fairly parallel to the water, and then let the fish run from there. All in all though, really enjoyed the fishing for what the fishing was. Absolutely superb. Would love to go back, and certainly intend to go back in the near future. Moving on to the common misconceptions. Already mentioned the fishing. You're not going to be banging 10 fish a day. It's just not going to happen. So if that's what you're after, perhaps consider a different option. The fishing's great, and when you get fish, it's absolutely great. But yeah, it's not a boiling pot of lots and lots of fish to be hitting into all the time. Other common misconceptions round about the flies that are being used. You're not going to be casting these all day or bigger. You'll see videos on the Seychelles Atoll and stuff like that where they're targeting big GTs, and you've got flies that are out to here. That's not going to be you. You might use some of those for the likes of bigger tarpon or barracuda, but typically you're going to be using little things like this, which is a sort of shrimpy pattern, and certainly the bonefish and permit will hit these all day long if they want them. I'll stick a video in the link to a really good video from Advart McLeod on his favourite sort of saltwater flies and patterns to give you some ideas on what you can utilise. Last thing to sort of cover off in common misconception, you're not going to Mexico and it's going to be party time, because it's definitely not. This is the main street of Punta Allen, and most of the areas where you go and do saltwater flats fly fishing will be similar. It's very quiet, very sleepy, and it's very subdued and chilled, which, if that's what you're after, it is absolutely superb. Really nice place to chill and relax after a hard day's fishing on the water, where it's been very hot, very humid, and very taxing physically. So there's no big nightlife in these sorts of areas. Overall, it's absolutely a superb trip to go on. Would definitely recommend it. Can't wait to go back myself. But certainly be prepared. Remember that you're going to a foreign country, a non-English speaking foreign country as their first language, and a very different culture. If you can accept that and be prepared for that, you will very much enjoy your trip. And absolutely, the fishing is superb when you start to get into fish. Don't get disheartened if you miss some. It certainly happens to everyone. And enjoy the experience for what it is. Hope that's been useful. Hit the bell, drop a like, comment, let me know what you think. Tell us about the trips that you've been on. Until next time, cheers.